Hi guys, welcome back to my YouTube channel. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Gavra and I produce content on all things careers and education focused. I am a recent university graduate who has received multiple investment banking offers from top firms for internships, and I have also received a full-time offer from Stanley for investment banking, which I did not take, but of course I have a lot of advice that I can share now in retrospect that hopefully will help you guys who are coming through the pipeline now as aspiring investment bankers. So today's video is going to be focused on assessment centers or final round interviews depending on where you are. I've been made aware that not everywhere calls them assessment centers, or actually I think they may be called super days in some geographies. They're basically just really long interviews. They typically last for about half of the day, and it's just like a series of back-to-back interviews, group exercises, individual case studies. Usually they're like the final rounds of the process, and then by the end of them you don't always find out on the day, but after that you find out about a week later or so whether or not you've been offered a space on the internship program that you applied for. I've gone through so many assessment centers and I get a lot of questions asking me how to approach assessment centers, particularly in this new era of coronavirus where a lot of them have been virtual. I've actually also gleaned insights from some of the students that I've helped secure investment banking offers this year from the top investment banks, so I will talk about those at the end of the video. All of the tips that I'll be talking through are completely relevant to any assessment center, whether virtual or in real life. So the first tip that I use to help me pass all my assessment centers is that I recognize that the overarching thing that they're looking for is, do they like you? And I know that seems a bit vague, but really the reason I say that is because, especially in investment banking, you're doing really long hours, and typically you're going to be interviewed by people within the business, people who you could potentially be working with for 16 to 18 hours sometimes a day. And so they're trying to see, are you the kind of person that I want to be sat next to on the desk? And so that just means in everything you're doing, they're trying to assess particular qualities and values that you have that are suitable for the firm that you're applying for. So for example, your ability to work with other people, how interesting you are you just someone who all you care about is finance and you have nothing else to bring to the table? Or are you someone that can participate in like group discussions about things? These are all of the kind of things that the assessment center is designed to test, and obviously your technical ability, because they want somebody who's able to do the job. So with that in mind, I always make sure to really bring out my personality in my interviews and really make sure that I show different sides of myself when I'm being interviewed, particularly in the one-on-one sections of the interview process where you're being asked competency questions. That's a really good area to demonstrate a different side to you, because a lot of people tend to just stick to the same examples from university or work experiences, and that's great and like definitely something you should do, but I would not recommend that all of your answers are focused on university projects or projects in your work experience, because that's a great opportunity for you to demonstrate things you do outside of that, extracurricular stuff you're involved in, societies that you're a part of, any instruments you play, like if you dance. So there's so many things that I'm sure you bring to the table outside of your academic and professional experiences. Don't be afraid to talk about those. Like, these are really great conversation starters, and you never know, you might have something really in common with your interviewer, or you might end up educating them on something you're really passionate about, and who doesn't like talking about things that they're passionate about? The second thing that I do, which I definitely think has helped me, is I prepare a document, and in this document I literally list every single question that I think I could be asked. So I have a technical section and I have a competency section. In the technical section, I basically write down all of the questions that I come across on the internet for investment banking. So I'll just type in on Google typical investment banking questions or something along that line, and I would then use that as the basis for the questions on the document, and I'd write model answers underneath each question. And then I would read through this all the time. So when I'm walking to my interview, when I'm going to university, if I have any downtime at home, I'll just be like going through and highlighting the ones particularly that I keep getting wrong. And that was how I was able to train myself to answer questions in the right way, particularly as someone who didn't come from a finance background. It was really important that I was able to learn those key technical concepts of corporate finance, valuations, etc., etc. So I recommend anyone who knows that they have an assessment center coming up to really take the time to do this, because I think it also really helps boost confidence. And like I said, I have a technical question section, but I also have a section for competency questions. And in my competency section, I write out maybe like 6 or 7 examples that I could potentially talk about in my interview, in line with like the obvious questions, like a time when you've worked in a team, a time when you dealt with conflict, a time when you've overcome some kind of challenge. These kind of questions that are really common competency questions, I would have an answer for each of those. And having so many examples prepared means that when you do the interview, there's very little chance that you won't be able to mold your examples to whatever they ask, and it just helps with nerves. And all of this really just helps you to go into your process feeling really prepared, really confident, which is essentially how you do well in an interview, right? So preparing the document of questions beforehand just helps to boost my confidence, and also meant that there was rarely a question that I didn't know the answer to when it came to like my one-on-one interviews. The third thing that's so important when you're going into an interview is to make sure that your commercial awareness is up to scratch. Make sure that you're up to date with recent news trends in the market. Make sure you have some examples of some recent deals that even if the firm that you're applying to isn't like a big short firm with really easy deals to find, just any deal that you found interesting. And the key thing that I always do is I relate that deal to like an overarching trend in the industry that I have personally observed. And this is a way for me to demonstrate that not only do I understand what I'm applying for, but I'm able to bring my own insights and kind of go above and beyond and take initiative to demonstrate my interest in this field. Because obviously if you say you want to do something, you're applying for the job, if you really are interested in it, you would have been following things in the news. And in terms of like tips for how you can keep up to date with commercial awareness, I recommend following things like the Financial Times. Lots of universities offer the Financial Times as a subscription for free with your university membership. So just go on your website and see if your university offers that. Even if not, there's so many free resources out there. There's Finamize, there's Instagram pages, so many Instagram pages you can follow to keep up to date with the markets and what's going on. There's no excuse. In this day and age of apps, there's no excuse for not being up to date with what's going on in the market and what your firm in particular has been doing and getting up to. So yeah, that's a really great way to stand out in your assessment center and not to get caught out, because one of the common questions people tend to ask is, talk to me about a recent deal that you've been following or a recent deal that our firm has done. So making sure that you have that ready beforehand is really important. I actually remember one interview in particular where I talked about an IPO that I've been following, and the banker who was interviewing me was one of the bankers, he was an MD on that IPO. That's another thing. Don't speak like you're an expert. This is why I tend to talk about the deal, talk about the specifics of the deal, but then I kind of bring my own opinion to the rationale behind the deal, not like my opinion of if the deal was something worth doing or not. I mean, if you are confident in doing that, then do go ahead. But imagine if I'd done that and the banker who I was talking to, he knew everything about the deal because he'd been working on it for the past 6 months to a year. And it was so much better for me to just say, oh yeah, I've heard about this IPO. I think it's really interesting that this company has decided to IPO now. And then I asked him questions when it became apparent he was one of the bankers on the deal, how it went about, and it really just pivoted to him. So you see how I was able to be sneaky with that, and you guys should do the same. The last tip I have relates to group exercises. So group exercises they vary in what they are. Some are very like qualitative based, so maybe I've had an assessment center where we were asked to allocate funding to different parts of some charity and discuss how much we're willing to give to each part of the charity. There were others where they're basically a mini individual case study where you are asked to pitch an acquisition or a merger between two companies to the person that's interviewing you. The common thing, no matter what kind of group exercise you do, is it's really important to strike the balance between making sure your voice is heard and making sure other people's voices are heard. It's so obvious the person in the group that's just trying to command and dominate the conversation isn't really thinking about other people's points of view, isn't really open to listening to other people's points of view, and those people typically don't get the job because that's not a trait that works well in team-based careers such as investment banking, where you're constantly working with other people, and it's really important that you listen to other people's ideas in order to do the job properly. So what I tend to do is I tend to take the lead in terms of timing, delegation, position, but not just saying, oh, this is your job, this is your job. Instead, I would say, okay guys, so these are the roles we have, who wants to do what? And that's allowing collaboration and discussion. But then on the flip side, if I can tell someone else in the group is trying to assume that role, then I might take a secondary role, such as timekeeping. So being the person that's like, okay guys, let's spend this much time on this, and this is how much time we've got left. Being the person who keeps everybody on track time-wise. And the last thing that I do that I think is really important is when I can tell someone in the group is quite shy or isn't really getting their point across, I'm always the person to say, so-and-so, what do you think? Or what's your opinion? Or what do you want to do? That's just my ability to facilitate discussion and recognize that everyone's voice needs to be heard. And also just gives that person a chance to potentially say something that could be something we've all missed, and we would all do really badly if we missed it. These are the kind of roles that I assume when I'm in a group exercise situation. And the final thing I would say is please don't sign up for something that you're not confident in. So typically there will be like a section on the financials, a section on the rationale, like just discussing the mechanics of the deal and like why you picked that target. A lot of people rush to do the financials even if they're not that confident in them, and you get grilled really hard by the managing directors. If you don't feel 100% confident on a particular part, don't be the person that tries to take over because you think it's going to impress anyone. What they're going to be more impressed with is that whatever you did it to a really high standard, and you were really thoughtful in the way that you approached your work. So those are the tips that I would have for the group exercise. Hopefully you guys get good teams. That means that you don't have to have any of these power struggles, but it's really important that your emotional intelligence is really high and you're looking at what role is missing within this group. What role do I need to assume? Do we need someone who kind of takes the lead and delegates? Do we need somebody who facilitates the discussion for people who are a bit less confident? Do we need somebody who's really in charge of like the timekeeping and making sure everything's on track in that sense? Just see where the gap lies and make sure you're filling it. But the worst thing you could do is stay silent. Do not stay silent. It's really important that you make sure that your voice is heard. So now I'm going to give you guys some of the tips that I've collected from successful students who have gone through the virtual assessment center process, this application cycle, and hopefully this will help you guys if you are in the process of applying for investment banking. The first tip that I have is to make sure that you're looking at the camera. And this is really weird, and it's something that even now when I'm filming my YouTube videos, I have to make sure that I'm really looking into the camera and not to the side of the camera, because you don't get to have that one-on-one interaction with the person when you're doing it virtually. And so you want to make sure that you are connecting with your interviewer and not just like looking distracted. And because of that, it's really important that you may have, even if you have some documents on your screen, because you just feel like you need that extra help, they can tell if you're reading something on the screen. So I personally would say just don't bother, because you're going to catch yourself out and it's going to be so obvious that you're just reading something on the screen. Also, if your eyes are darting back and forth between the camera and the text on your screen, it's just going to be really obvious. So if you really must have something open, maybe have your text right at the top of your screen so it's right underneath the camera line. But other than that, I would just say just don't bother with trying to have extra stuff on your screen, and be really considerate with looking directly into the camera. The second tip that's also really important is make sure you have a good internet connection. I've been told that there are some people who, because of their internet connection, they were not able to connect and they lost their place in the assessment center because there's nothing they can do really. So just make sure you're not in that position. If you have dodgy internet in your house, then go to your university, go to somewhere where you can book a room, a space that's quiet and that you won't be distracted. It's just really important that you have a really good, stable Wi-Fi connection, and also it feeds into your interviews. You don't want to be doing your interview and your video is like doing this. You need to make sure that you've got a really solid internet connection. Even if you have to upgrade it, maybe for like a weekend or something, or that day, speak to your internet providers. Do what you have to do, but just make sure you've got a really strong internet connection. The third thing is make sure you're in a quiet place where you're not going to be distracted. I kind of just alluded to that, but just make sure that there's no chance that someone's going to run through the screen, someone's going to shout in the background, neighbors aren't going to start playing lots of loud noise. It just doesn't speak to being a very professional candidate, and that's the last thing you want to be the reason why you don't get the job. My last tip relates to just be engaged, which sounds really vague, but as somebody who's done countless Zoom and Skype calls these past couple of months. It's so easy to zone out when you're virtual, because you don't have that pressure of having a human being looking right at you. And that's the last thing you want to do, particularly in a group exercise. You'd want to look engaged, you want to look like you're really focused and you're listening to the other people speaking. And so just try your hardest to make sure that you stay focused throughout the interview process. And the great thing about the fact that they're virtual is that you do get given a lot of breaks, so you do have time between sometimes, or just before or after, to relax, and like you're in the comfort of your own home or wherever you are. So just for those 30 minutes, those 40 minutes, just make sure that you're completely engaged, you're looking right at the camera, you're like responding to people's questions, you're interjecting with suggestions. Just make sure you're really making conscious effort to stay present in your Zoom calls. And finally, just because it's virtual, that doesn't take away anything in terms of pleasantries, in terms of the processes in your head should not change. Imagine you're doing this in person, it's just virtual. So getting to know your interviewer, being smiley, coming across as very happy, the angle of your camera, the way that you're dressed, the way you're presenting yourself, the time you log on. Don't take for granted the fact that because it's virtual you can just log on the minute. Get everything sorted beforehand so you don't have to worry about any technical difficulties. And all of this stuff will hopefully lead to you having a really successful virtual assessment center. So those are my tips for how to succeed in an investment banking assessment center. I hope you guys found this video useful. Please comment down below if there are any particular questions you have or that you want me to answer, and I'll do my best to get that content out. And like I always say, please like, comment and subscribe on my videos, and I'll see you guys in my next one. Bye.